Hello, everyone. This is Gwydion with RPG Frequencies. I haven't done a video in a bit. I think everyone understands work, life gets in the way at times. But today I'm going to try to record a few videos, the first of which is showing my setup of Solacia, the Wizard of Doom, which is a solitaire game by Mike Lambo. And you can find this on Drive Through RPG. I think it's $9.99. Actually, I bought a bundle of two games. It was the Wizard of Doom and then the sequel, which I don't recall the name of it, but I got a couple dollars off, and I think I got them both for $17.99 on Drive Through RPG. You can also buy the actual soft copies on Amazon. So if you'd rather go that route, or obviously you can buy the PDFs and print them and spiral bind them, which is what I tend to do. But what I want to show in this game, in this video, I'm going to briefly flip through and just show you the type of game it is. But my main intention of doing this video is to show you the power of PUM Companion. As many of you know that follow me, I tend to use a number of different virtual tabletops and software programs to play my games. And most of the games I play are typically not a physical setup. I just don't have the space that I can dedicate to a physical setup at home. So I tend to do a lot with tools that are online. So playingcards.io, I use Fantasy Grounds, as many of you know. I use Sojur VTT and Alchemy VTT on occasion. So all of these tools are great, but PUM Companion is really enhancing its game, and Jensen Vars is so responsive to requests. You can get PUM Companion both, or I shouldn't say both. You can get it on PC, you can download it via iOS, you can download it via Android. So there's a number of ways you can play PUM Companion. And PUM Companion is based on the various PUM, I don't know if I'd call them oracles because they're more robust than that, but they're a series of tools. There's scenes, there's game, there's plot unfolding machine, but there's all types of different tools that you can purchase from Jensen Vars. And man, all of his tools I think are super helpful for solitaire gaming. So I'm going on a bit of a ramble here. I'll try to put this in the timestamp so you know when the video actually starts. But I do want to show you what I've done in PUM Companion. And then the next video, I'm going to actually do a playthrough, but it'll be much less instructional. And I'll just get into a playthrough of Solacia. So let's just briefly flip through the Wizard of Doom so you can kind of see the type of game it is. And maybe it'll give you an idea of what you can do with PUM Companion as well. So Mike Lambo, quick plug for him. He has all kinds of game books. A lot of them are war games. So they're not just fantasy. He has a lot of different types of solo game books. So I would encourage you to check him out on Drive Through RPG and I think and Amazon as well. All right, so it's 59 pages. It is a campaign, and there's some variability, and it looks like there'll be good replayability. You'll essentially roll to start your campaign, and you'll go on one of three quests, quest one, A, B, or C. So there, again, you can certainly just pick one of them too, I suppose. But you do have the ability to, I think, play through this several times. And then from there, you'll move on to quest 2, 3, 4, and then finally 5, which is kind of the boss fight and the end of the adventure. The background, talks a little bit about it's a peaceful place until the Wizard of Doom arrives. So the Wizard of Doom is the big baddie, and you're going to be controlling a party of heroes, which consists of 4 heroes, kind of your standard tropes a little bit, except for maybe the elf. But there's a warrior, a thief, an elf, and a mage. The elf is more of at least as I look at it, more of a ranger type. So your whole goal is to get through each of the quests with at least one hero alive. The game doesn't end if one of your hero dies, and there is the possibility you can bring one of the heroes back, but you're trying to at least get one of your heroes out of the quest, and it's not just a speed run to try to get to the exit, because you can also find chests. There's other things you can do, not necessarily level up, but find things that can help you on your way, spell books and what have you. So there's a lot of rules here on, and in a good way, it's very explicit on kind of the winning conditions, how you set up your quests, and I'll go through all of this. when I start the game, and you do track your turns. So there is a time crunch. I kind of like that. You have 10 turns to get to the exit, but then after 10 turns, then there starts to become more challenges, and the Wizard of Doom has, I think, a better chance of interrupting your game. Turn process, we'll go through this as I play, but phase one, you roll to determine if you have an enemy that arrives on the map or some type of event like a trap, or you might get glued to your hex. Hero activation is next, then enemy activation. So it seems like there's a fair bit of strategy to this game, which is kind of cool. So you'll actually have the enemy appear, and then you can determine how you attack that enemy and how you face it. So I like that aspect. It'll be fun to go through that. And there is some rolling on enemy charts to determine what you're going to face. Again, a lot of examples around, like, if let's see, what is this one about? For enemy placement or event performance. So what it's saying here is, on a roll of 1, there would only be one hex without a hero on it, and so the chosen hex would be the one at the bottom of the middle, ticked in red. I think what they're saying here is, when you roll for an enemy placement, you're going to look at the number, and if it's a 1, you're going to look for a 1 on the hex map. But if your hero is on a 1, an enemy will not spawn there. So in this case, if you roll a 1, then you're automatically going to put the enemy on this, the only one that's unoccupied. So there's a lot of rules around that. I don't want to get into that too much. Then you get into hero activation. Your heroes have a range, so only your elf and your mage actually have a range. Mage, because he or she can cast spells. Elf, because of a ranged weapon, and I believe it's a bow or something to that effect. And then you have an attack roll, which is always 2d6, and you have a defense roll, which is only 1d6. So let's just keep flipping. Again, much more on your attack and how you defend. I believe the monsters have a defense value, so I know that they can defend as well. It talks about how you can move, what happens there. You want to potentially shoot first with a ranger, because I say the ranger, the elf, because I believe you get more of a benefit to attack when you have not yet moved, which I think is simulating if you're running and then trying to draw your bow and attack, you're going to be a little out of breath and a little bit more challenged. So I think it's a little bit harder if you move first. So there's attacking, there's instructions around line of sight. So this goes into all that, and maybe we'll get into this if I have to look it up during the game. There are terrain or situational modifiers. So this will make if it's a plus, it's making your to hit more challenging. So if you're typically, let's say you need to roll a 7, but somebody is in trees, then you're going to need to add +1. So now you need to roll an 8 on a 2d6. So there's all kinds of different terrain modifiers. You do get benefits if any of your heroes are in a hex adjacent to an enemy, and that's described in the situational modifier as well. You can interact. There's things like shrines, chests that will populate. Shrines will give you an ability to heal and or potentially resurrect one of your party members, which is cool. The wizard can cast it. I kind of like this. It's very variable or random, I guess, but you're going to roll with your mage if you opt to perform the cast action. And depending on how high you roll, you're going to be able to use various spells. So you're going to roll a d6, and let's say you roll a 3, then all these numbers in green are the cost of that spell. So if I roll a 3, I could cast a zap spell or a force spell. If I roll like a 6, I could cast 2 force spells. So anyway, there's definitely variability, but kind of cool for what I think is a relatively simple game that you can pick up and play quickly. This gives you a lot more detail behind each of the spells that you may have. You can find items during your questing. So bone, sword, shield, and rage. And I like the color coding. I believe the color coding is based on what hero these will apply to or will benefit. So in this case, all of these greens are W, which stands for the warrior. The T stands for the thief, so you might encounter these during your playthrough. E is elf, and M is your mage. Enemy activation, so there is kind of an AI for the enemy on what they will do, and it tells you kind of what happens depending on if they're near a hero if they're not. And again, you'll kind of walk through that during the game. Flying, I think it's harder to hit a flying target, so there'll be some issues there. Again, very robust detail on each of the enemies you face on what they will do. So I think that's pretty cool. And you have different events, again, traps, rage, which I don't know if that's the wizard kind of getting all the monsters or enemies in a rage, gluey ground. You could be stuck to the ground. Um, so it does talk about the campaign. There's a campaign tracker, so you can track if your heroes don't have traditional hit points. Basically, they become injured if they're successfully hit by a monster the first time, or an enemy, I should say. And then if they're hit a second time, they're dead. So, and then you get in the quests. I don't want to spoil these, but they have again robust detail on kind of what happens in each of the quests. A little bit of a description of the quest. So I'll read that when I start the game. Then you're going to roll on placing the enemy. Your enemies are going to go, then the monsters are going to go. And again, on each of these, I believe the terrain and situational modifiers are always the same. The enemies are definitely different in events per quest, and the chest chart is the exact same. So what happens here is if you do interact and open a chest, you're going to roll a d6, and on a 1 or a 2, depending on who opened it, the wizard, mage, elf, or thief, this is what you're going to find. So I kind of like that. I mean, I envision that hey, the chest has all of these things, but only one of them is relevant to your heroes, and then the chest disappears after. But I kind of like that. It's not like, hey, you open it and there's absolutely no benefit. And you're hoping, I think, over time to get all of these for each of your heroes by the time you get to the big boss battle, I think. So kind of cool. And yeah, so I'm going to flip past, and then actually I'll show you the maps. So the maps are pretty cool. It shows you all of the hexes. They're all numbered. You have a turn tracker at the bottom. The hexes with the green dot, you're going to place your hero in, your heroes. So you can, I don't know if you can split them up, but you can definitely choose one of the starting hexes. You probably don't want to split your party, right? Up here, sometimes the enemies have a random movement. So if they do, you'll be able to roll a d6 and use this little handy icon to determine what direction they move in. And you're trying to get to the exit again. You're going to start down at the bottom, and ultimately you're going to try to get to the inn in this quest, which is the exit. And then after you're done, if you succeed, at least one of your heroes exits successfully, you're going to roll a d6 to determine which of the 3 quests you'll go on for quest 2. So again, it seems like there's some good replayability. I'll probably roll the first time I play through, and then maybe I'll just pick to try something different, different combination the next time I play. So I'm going to quickly, actually, I'm going to flip quickly. I don't want to show and spoil all the rest of the quests. You can see all these different quests, and then you get to the final. But here is the campaign sheet. This is in PUM Companion. I put it in, so I'll show you that. But again, you can track your results of each of your quests, and if any of your characters were killed. You have suggested counters. So if you buy the physical copy of the book, they basically say, hey, you might want to copy this onto cardboard board or something like that, cut it out and glue it onto the cardboard, and then cut out so you can have these little tokens. Rob's Tabletop World, I've followed his channel for probably 6, 7, 8 years, almost as long as I think he's been around. He has a cool, not unboxing, but a little bit of a review of this game from about a year ago. Again, I just found this game, but I believe it's been out for at least a year, maybe a couple of years at this point. But looked like a fun game, so I decided to pick it up. So that's it. I know that was a longer than I planned on walkthrough of the game, but I did want to give that its due. So let's turn this off and go into PUM Companion. I'm going to turn off the PDF and turn on the main screen. And let's get rid of this. Okay. So this is my PUM Companion. Again, obviously I'm on the PC version. I also bought the iOS version. You do need to buy them separately because there's just, as I understand it, so much different coding between the two apps. So you do need to buy them separately if you want this on your iPad or other device as well. And the other thing I will mention, I have purchased all of the extras that are available for PUM Companion. You don't have to, but let me click on this up here and show you. So there's a decks and cards add-on, and I think all of these are roughly, I think they're around $6. I could be wrong. I'm looking for the price I don't see it. They're not super expensive, but I want to say they're about $6. But you have the ability to like bring in your own decks and use cards, which is really cool. The crystal theme allows you to do some customization of the themes within PUM Companion within each of your games. So you can change colors, font, things like that. You can add a background image, and I'll show you how I've done that. So I am using this. Builder widgets, these are really cool and powerful. They allow you to place different types of widgets, particularly useful when you're using like a character sheet and or an adventure sheet. And I'll show you that when we get into the Wizard of Doom. Finally, 3D dice. I can't believe he did this. I use 3D dice, dddice.com a lot for my playthroughs, and I love it. It's super cool and really powerful. But the fact that he added 3D dice into PUM Companion within the last week is just awesome. That is so huge. I think it's a game changer for me. So, all right, let's close that. So when you first launch your PUM Companion, you're going to see this. You won't have any active games if you just bought it, but it kind of gives you some ideas on how you can start. I won't go through that. There's plenty of videos on that. You can import games. So I've been exporting my Solacia game and importing it to my iPad just to kind of see how it looks there. So I have a few things up here. So let's click on, you can already see that I've added a background image to this, but let's click on Solacia, the Wizard of Doom. So I added this image, so it kind of looks kind of cool when you first open it up. And so I'll walk you through briefly, how did I set this up? So at the top is your plot tracker, and I apologize if I'm saying the name wrong, Jensen, on some of these things, but I made this really simple. You can do this however you want. You can set your own plot trackers, but I decided to say, hey, look, as I complete each quest, going to the final quest, I'll click on this and I'll advance the plot to show, I've gone through the first quest. And it just gives you a nice little visual on where you're at with the game. And remember, PUM Companion is meant to be, it's so flexible. You can use it for what's traditionally a TTRPG that's not solo. And it's probably a bad example, but I've set one up for Dragonbane. And although there are some solo rules for Dragonbane, I'm putting the starter box, I think that's what it's called, for Dragonbane. I put that into PUM Companion, and I'm going to try to solo it. And anyway, I have a different setup showing that, but the point is it's really, really robust and very flexible on how you can use PUM Companion. So let's just kind of walk through my setup here. So again, you've got the quests on the top, which is how I set this up. You've got the table and cards, again, because you have cards because I have that extension. Tables you'll have already. So I have input all of the tables that I think I'll need for the game. Starting campaign is just going to roll and decide which of 1A, 1B, or 1C do I start with. The chess chart, at first I started doing a chess chart for every quest, and then I realized the contents of the chest are the same in every scenario. So I just made one chart. I put a 1 and a 2 in front of these because I wanted them to sort properly. So because they sort alphabetically, let's put a 1 here, and I just numbered these, and then shrines are consistent, I believe, as well across all of the different quests. So those are ones that you don't need to have individually for each quest. But I did put the enemies in separately, and maybe I'll show you that quickly. So let's go to configure tables, and let's open, 1A enemy chart. So I will click on edit. So I added a little, I don't know what it's called, category, I think, or tag for Solacia, just to filter them all in one location. And I've toggled include and save. And that way, if I do export this game to iOS, it will also bring over the tables so you can import them into your game as well. I've set this up for 2D6. I think there's different ways you can do this, but because the dragon shows up on a roll of a 2 or 3, I just copied that entry down. I didn't put all of the information for each of these in here. I just wanted enough so when I rolled, I could look into the PDF, which I have loaded into PUM Companion, and I could look up the detail behind these in the PDF. So it's pretty straightforward. And so how that would work. One last thing. This is really powerful, but I'll just show you how I did it for now. Once you get to quest 5A, you have all these different enemies, but you also have a potential that the Wizard of Doom will come in and he'll do something chaotic. during that final adventure. And the way I've handled that is like you might have a skeleton and the Wizard of Doom might act. So I've got a nested table that will automatically roll. If I do roll, I think it's a 9, I'll get a skeleton and it'll roll on the Wizard of Doom, which is a separate table, and it'll show me the results. So I don't have to worry about any of that. It's all going to be automated. So I love that. So let's just show you briefly. I'm just going to roll on one of these. So if I click on these, it's automatically going to roll in my journal here. So let's just click on enemy chart. So there you can see my dice rolling. So I'm rolling a 6 and it should show up. Yep. So I rolled an Orc Warrior and it will show over here that I rolled a Orc Warrior. I'm going to get rid of it because I want this a clean game. One of the things I would encourage you to do that I've already done is I might use this setup multiple times. So I exported it as kind of my master copy. So I can play here. And then if I need to start a new game, I can just take that separate file. So I don't have to worry about deleting everything in here, but I can have a clean file to play it again. All right, so that's how tables work. Pretty straightforward. I don't really have cards in this game, but then let's collapse that and then show you this section here, which is the Oracle. No, it's not the Oracle section. I apologize. I don't remember the name that this is called, but it has your journal where you can write notes down here. And it also has a section where you can include, what is it called? For a second. No, I shouldn't have done that. Let me click it down. Thought it would send to, yeah, maybe it's just the image that I'm thinking of. Anyway, this is the section that you can load images, you can send images from different aspects of the game. And I'm clicking too much at the moment. Let's just go back here to make it easier. So like in this case, I've included a couple of snippets because I think it's going to be easy for me to just like, if I want to go through the turn process, I can quickly click on that and then X out of it. If I want to know about the modifiers, so I can remind myself, oh yeah, the target's in a tree, I need to add a +1. So a couple things I just added in there. And then again, you can write a note if you want. And there's a dice roller here. So you can click on that and roll if you just want to outright roll. I probably won't need to do that because I've done automation. So let's now look in the third section here, the middle section. And this is where you have all of your characters, locations, and compendium. Compendiums are like PDFs that you upload. So I've included in characters all of the PCs. So here are my 4 PCs, and I've tagged them as PCs. So if I go up to filter, if I click on PCs, I should not have done this. Let me change this right now. This is just, should not be PC. I want to get rid of that. So let's delete that, click away, and if I go back to overview now, okay, great. So here are my 4 PCs or player characters. So let's just open the warrior. I'll click on it. You can see these things that are little green dots up here. I'll get to those in a second. But in the journal section, all I've done right now is included the stats just so I know what they are. So the range of the warrior is 1. When he attacks, he needs to get an 8+. When he defends, he needs to get a 5+ to avoid the attack of the enemy. So let me click into the warrior. I know this is pixelated, but it'll look fine on the map, I believe. So I've included these widgets. So again, this is the log action widget. And so what I've done is I've done an attack roll, which is 2d6. So if I click on this and unlock it, and if I edit, you can see it's just roll 2d6. Really straightforward, but I thought I'd include that in there. And then I just added a text field here for attack. And then the defense is a 1d6, so I added a defense die. I'll show this again when we get into the maps, but it's going to be really powerful. Reason I have 2 of these is the first one is when he's uninjured or fully healthy. The second one with this like reddish orange background and the red text is if he gets injured, then I would put that token on the map. It doesn't really affect anything other than if he gets attacked again and hit, he dies. There's no real mechanical effect other than he's kind of on death's door, so to speak. So I won't go to each of these because they're all roughly the same, but you can see how I've done that. So let's get into enemies quickly. So these are all the enemies that you could face during your playthrough. So let's just click on the spider. And again, what I've done here, you have his attack roll, defense roll, little description on the AI around the, what he'll do if he lands on the map. So if I click on him again, you have an attack and a defense the same way you have on the heroes, your player characters. Let's get rid of this. And what else? I've got conditions, so I can throw these on the maps. There's a few conditions. I wanted to have those. And I've got weapons. So if you find weapons, you'll be able to add these to the character and to your map so you don't forget. And finally, I thought I had, there's defense. So these are like shields. You have 2 shields. One's a W for the warrior, one's a T for the thief. I've got those. Miscellaneous. I've got chests, so I can place those chests on a map and easily remember where they are, and then a turn tracker. And these are all things, you don't need to do everything I did. I probably go overboard, but I like to have it all automated and just make it really easy for me to play. So those are my characters. Those are all my tokens I'll play with. So let's get into locations. So I've included every location, and I just added from Hero Icons. It's a package of icons I purchased from, I think it was on Roll20. Relatively inexpensive, and it does have a Creative Commons license, so I can use them anywhere, which is awesome. So let's go into 1A, the adventure, the journey begins. Okay, and you can see there's a couple that have a book. Those are just like adventure record sheet, turn process, and my modifiers, in case I wanted to see those separately. I will show you the adventure sheet because I did include some ability to track things on the adventure sheet. Let's look at 1A, the adventure, journey begins. All right, so this is just, again, an icon of a map. That's what I have here. But then I have the actual map from the PDF. So you can see I can drill into it. It's really, I kept it at a pretty high pixel count. I think it's 2000 by 2500, or it's probably more than that, but something like that. And you can see I've got my turn tracker already on and put into the first round of the turns. But right now I have this unlocked. So what I can do, I've locked the turn tracker, but if I unlock it, then I can move it as the game progresses, but I'm going to leave it in 1 right now and lock it so I don't accidentally move it. Down here are your widgets. So if you need to add your heroes, so let's say we rolled 1A and now the quest, I want to place my heroes on the map. So I'm going to place them on one of these 2 green dot hexes. So if I click on tokens, all of my tokens are here. And I think for now, because the game, you're supposed to be cutting these out in squares, I can unframe them and just make them little squares. This makes them more like a traditional round token, but I don't want to cut anything off. So I'm going to unframe it, and then I can filter it to my PCs. So now if I click on the warrior, it's going to pop up right there, but then I can drag him down here, and I can make him bigger if I think that's too small. And then I can add the rest. Again, you have to do this again. It won't remember, but it's fine. And then I can go to elves. Let's just put those 2 on for now. You get the idea. So again, I can drill in and then move these around. I've got my turn tracker. I've got my elf and the warrior. And the reason I did this way is, let's say we get into a combat. I won't throw anybody on the map, but I want to show you my intention here. So obviously I can move these around. I could lock them if I want. But if I click on the warrior, instead of trying to click in here, which will not work very well, and roll to attack, I can go straight to his character sheet. And it does take a few clicks, so maybe I did too much here and I should have just rolled a d6, but I can go here and roll his attack. Okay, so I rolled a 7, and that's going to show up in the journal. And so then, I need to go back and say, oh yeah, so I needed an 8+, assuming there were no modifiers. I rolled a 7, I failed. So you can do it so many different ways. I didn't have to set up any automation. I could have just simply left it as a D6 roll. I just like to have a lot of my stuff automated, so I tend to do that. So, and then if you had things like, let's say we found, I'll unframe this again, and I'm going to look for weapons. So let's say we found and opened a chest and we found a bone sword. So I could keep this anywhere. I could put it on the map, or I could just toggle it right off and just remind myself that, oh yeah, let's look at this. Let's bring this on. Yeah, I have the bone sword. So you can kind of leave it wherever you want, or I guess maybe it would look better if I just kind of put it at the top and outside of the hexes and put it up here or something. But I'll think about that when I do my gameplay. But that's that. And you'll do the same things with your enemies. You'll place them in the squares. Oh, final thing I'll show is the chests. So you will roll in most of the quests, and if you roll like say a 2, then I believe you'll put the chests on the everywhere there's a 2. So like I can make this bigger, then I can immediately, oh, didn't mean to do that. I can copy this and put it in all of the sections where there's a 2. I think I got them all. So that's super cool. So now I've got all the chests there. I've got all my tokens there. I know where to open them. And then if I do land on a chest, I can go back to my table and I can roll on my chest to see what I get. And let's just simulate that. So let's say I get a hero on the chest and I click on the chest here. So I'm rolling a 3 and it's going to automatically populate. So I put all of this text in here, and my intention there was, okay, who opened it? If the the warrior opened it, he gets a shield, and then I can look that up and I'll show you where, but I can either just grab the token. Again, I think I showed that to you, but let me go back down to tokens, and I'm going to go to, I think those are weapons, right? Oh no, that's not weapon. I think I have it as defense. Let's try that again. Defense, and this is a shield for the warrior. Warrior is always going to be in green. So now I have the token I can put anywhere, but it says defense 4+. So now I just need to roll a 4 or better on a d6 instead of, I think, a 5. I'd have to go back and look. But you can, again, keep this anywhere you want, but you might want to do that just to remember that you have that. So I'm going to delete these. I don't necessarily have to, but kind of want to keep this clean rather than have to reopen this again. So we'll keep that clean, and that's back to where it needs to be. So that's how all of the quests will work. I'm leaving these as kind of hotkeys. The warrior, elf, mage, thief. I can get rid of the wizard because he's an enemy. All right, and then let's go to a couple. I think one other thing here, and then I'll show you the compendium. We'll go to the adventure record sheet. So let's click on that. So this, and again, I'm just using my mouse wheel to scroll in, but this I've set up using the widget, so you have to have that add-on. You can do it different ways, though. You can use this, I think it's the text, and there are some limited like check marks, X's, so you can do some things. You don't have to have this widget, but it makes it super cool. So I've already included these and locked them so that I don't move them around. And you can see in the game, there's not a healthy status. I just wanted to have that. So I actually added a text box there. I'll lock it. And I wanted to add this into each of these so that I remembered at the end, if I'm doing say 1A and I win, then I can click on this and say, yep, I've finished 1A. Now I'm to 2A, 2B, or 2C. But I don't necessarily need to say loss, because if you lose, you end the game. It's over. But I can, if anybody gets hurt during this, I can kind of mark the status here and make that an injured or killed and just change the text. And if I do find any of these things, like I think the warrior, we said, found a shield, I can tick that so I can remind myself. Take a little sip of coffee. In my throat. Still feel that tickle. Darn it. All right. So you get the idea. So that is the adventure sheet. Pretty straightforward, but I think really cool. And modifiers is just a way for me to, I can pop these to the log. So that's the word I was trying to find, but it'll pop it over to the log here, which I've already done just to make it easier. The other thing you can do, which I think is really cool, actually, I'll show you that on, let me go back to Quest 1A. So if I click on this sheet, and this has enough information that, I'll be reading about the journey, and I need to make sure that I know the terrain, although I do have that up here. There's other information I might want to refer to. So if I go back to this summary here, I can click on these 3 dots. I can send it to the log, but if I don't want the log to get spammed, I can also pin this viewer. And then this sheet shows up, and you can put it anywhere, but it'll always stay on top. So like if I close this for some reason and don't have this up here, this is going to stay wherever I'm looking. And if I want to look at it widescreen, I can then pull it up and say, oh yeah, I wanted to look something about the terrain, or I wanted to remind myself, what can the thief do? Oh yeah, here it is. And then I'm back, but this is always going to stay on top. And if I don't want it there, I can just X out. Super cool functionality. All right, the last one I'm going to show you here is the compendium. So this is where you can add in all kinds of, you can add in PDFs. I added in the adventure sheet, but then I ended up using it as an image. So I'm keeping it as a location object because you can't, like, since this is a PDF, I can't use my icons here. So I have it in here, but I probably just get rid of it. I won't use it. But what I will use, let's go back to my overview, is this is the actual, I uploaded the full PDF. So if during the game I'm playing and I'm on stream and I'm like, wait a second, I can make this smaller too and make it like fit the screen. But if I want to look into this and say, hey, I want to read more about the rules, I'm confused by a rule. I mean, you've got the entire PDF and it looks amazing. So I can also just scroll down this way, but I can have this all here so I can easily reference it. And then if I don't want it anymore, I just close it out. This last section over here, I probably won't use. This is the plot. And this is going to be, if you really need to use the Oracle, again, this gets into functionality for PUM Companion I don't need for this game. So that was pretty long. I recognize that. I'll try to use some timestamps to make it a little bit easier to follow, but that is PUM Companion, and I'm going to pull this up to the top. Solacia, Wizard of Doom. And yeah, so I would encourage you to check, if you like what you see, check out PUM Companion. You can find it on itch.io. Jensen has a lot of videos on it. He's got a really robust Discord channel with a lot of great people that'll help you, and they've helped me a lot as I've learned about PUM Companion and how to use it. And I would encourage you to buy the PDF, Wizard of Doom. The next playthrough, or actually the next video, I'm just going to get into a playthrough. So I've set this up. You know, this is all about PUM Companion, but I'm just going to probably give a 2-minute overview, if that, and then I'm just going to jump into the play. So I hope you like it. Give me a like, give me a subscribe. It sure helps the channel. And I'm so excited to be over 1,000 subscribers, folks that find my content somewhat interesting. So appreciate all of you. And until next time, I hope you have fun gaming.